I've always believed in three things: hard work, taking responsibility, and loyalty. Those were my core values, the things I built my life around. And for the longest time, I thought they had given me the family I always wanted. Turns out, I was dead wrong. I met Samantha through a mutual friend. She was a widow, left to raise two kids, Luke, who was 4 at the time, and Emma, still in diapers. Her husband had been a military officer who died overseas. She looked lost, not just sad, but exhausted in a way that settled deep in her bones, like someone who had been running on empty for too long. I didn't step in because I felt obligated. It wasn't some hero complex. I just saw her, saw the way she carried everything alone, the way she barely held it together. And I wanted to help. At first, it was little things, watching the kids so she could rest, running errands, fixing things around the house. But soon, it became more. I wasn't just helping. I was stepping into their lives, becoming part of something bigger than myself. And when Samantha and I got married, I became their dad. Not legally, maybe, but in every way that mattered. I worked my ass off to give them everything. Late nights, overtime, skipped vacations, anything to make sure those kids had a good life. I paid for their school, their clothes, their hobbies. I took them to soccer games, helped with homework, planned birthday parties. I was the guy cheering loudest at their games, the one making sure Santa still showed up every Christmas morning. They called me dad, and I believed it. But looking back, I see the cracks that were always there. The first time I noticed something off, Luke was about 13. He was talking to a friend, laughing, and I heard him say, "Yeah, that's just my mom's husband. He pays for everything." I remember feeling this cold weight in my stomach. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. Like I was some background character in his life. Like I wasn't someone who had wiped his tears, held him when he was sick, taught him how to ride a bike. I told myself it was just a dumb comment. Kids say things without thinking. I let it slide. But as the years passed, the little things piled up. The eye rolls, the backtalk, Emma copying Luke, treating me like some annoying authority figure instead of a parent. Samantha, meanwhile, would just shrug it off. "They're teenagers," she'd say. "It's just a phase." I wanted to believe that. Then one night, Luke came home hours past curfew. No call, no text. Just strolled in like nothing happened. I was worried sick. When he finally walked through the door, I asked, as calmly as I could, "Where were you?" He barely looked at me. "Relax. I'm not a kid." That stung. But what he said next, that shattered something in me. "You're not my real dad. Stop acting like you own me." Emma, standing behind him, smirked. "Yeah, you're just some guy mom married." I waited for Samantha to say something, to defend me, to remind them of everything I'd done for them. She didn't. She just sat there, scrolling through her phone, like none of it mattered. That was the moment I realized I wasn't part of this family. I was just the guy who paid the bills. I didn't say anything that night. I just stood there, staring at Samantha, waiting for her to look up, to acknowledge what had just happened, to tell the kids they were out of line. She never did. Instead, she let out this long, tired sigh, like I was the one making a big deal out of nothing. "They have a point, Thomas," she said, not even glancing away from her phone. "Maybe you should back off a little." Back off. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I had spent years of my life making sure they had everything they needed. Worked late shifts, took second jobs, gave up vacations, all to give them a good life. I showed up to every school event, every birthday party, every late-night meltdown. I was there. Always. And now I was supposed to just back off? I didn't argue. Didn't yell. Didn't say a damn thing. I just nodded and walked away. But something inside me had shifted. The next few days felt different. The house felt different. Maybe it was just me. Maybe the resentment that had been simmering under the surface for years had finally boiled over. But suddenly, I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way Luke barely acknowledged me unless he needed something. The way Emma only spoke to me when she wanted a favor. The way Samantha seemed detached, like she had already made her choice a long time ago, and I was just now catching up. So I decided to test it, just to see. I stopped giving them extra spending money. Nothing major, just small things. No more $20 for fast food. No more covering for them when they forgot their homework at home. No more bailing them out when they got themselves into trouble. At first, they didn't even notice. Then one morning, Luke came downstairs in a rush. "Hey, I need a ride. My car's out of gas." I didn't even look up from my coffee. "Guess you better leave early for the bus." He blinked, caught off guard. What? No, just give me $20. I'll fill it up after school. I took a sip of my coffee. Nah. His jaw tightened. Seriously? You've got a job, right? I said, finally meeting his eyes. Figure it out. Emma snorted. Wow. Petty much. Luke scoffed. Whatever, he muttered, grabbing his bag and stomping out the door. Samantha waited until he was gone before speaking. Was that really necessary? I shrugged. I'm just following your advice. Backing off. She rolled her eyes but didn't push it. The shift was subtle at first. They still acted like they didn't need me. Still rolled their eyes, still muttered under their breaths. But then small cracks started forming. Emma broke her phone and expected me to replace it. I didn't. Luke got caught skipping class and needed me to smooth things over with the school. I didn't. Samantha realized her budget wasn't stretching as far as she thought it would. One night, she sat down next to me on the couch, acting casual. So, I was thinking, maybe we could go out for dinner this weekend. As a family, I knew what she was doing, trying to butter me up. She only ever suggested family nights when she needed something. I played along. Sure. Where were you thinking? She smiled. That new steakhouse downtown. I nodded. Sounds good. You making the reservation? She hesitated. I mean, yeah, but you want me to pay. She pursed her lips. I just thought that I'd cover it, like I always do. I set my beer down and looked at her. Funny. Didn't seem like I was part of the family last week. Her face darkened. Are you seriously still on about that? I leaned back, crossing my arms. You told me to back off, Sam. So I did. She scoffed, standing up. Fine. Forget it. And just like that, the family dinner was off the table. It didn't take long for things to spiral after that. The kids started getting angrier, more resentful. Samantha started getting snippier, like I was the one breaking up the family. They didn't understand what was happening yet, but they were starting to feel it. Then, one morning, I walked outside to find my car keyed. A long, jagged scratch ran from the driver's side door all the way to the trunk. I knew. I didn't have proof yet, but I knew. I didn't say a word. I just went inside, got on my laptop, and ordered security cameras. I installed the cameras that same night. Didn't tell anyone. Just set them up quietly. One in the garage, another covering the driveway, and a third near the front porch. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't even angry anymore. I just wanted the truth. And a few nights later, I got it. I had been lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, the glow of my phone the only light in the room. Sleep hadn't come easy lately. Too much noise in my head. Too many thoughts about how I had ended up here. Then my phone buzzed, a notification from the cameras. Motion detected. I sat up, heart pounding, and clicked the video. Luke and Emma. They were in the garage, whispering, laughing. Emma held a pair of scissors, snipping at something while Luke rummaged through my closet. My stomach twisted. I watched in silence as Emma held up one of my dress shirts, grinned, and sliced it straight down the middle. Luke yanked open my dresser drawers, pulling things out, tossing them onto the floor like a thief looking for cash. It wasn't just mindless destruction. It was deliberate, calculated. They were trying to get a reaction, trying to see how far they could push me before I snapped. I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around my phone. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I saved the footage, backed it up on a hard drive, and took a deep breath. Fine. If this was how they wanted to play it, so be it. The next morning, I didn't say a word. Neither did they. They still thought they had the upper hand, still thought they were winning their little war against me. But I saw the smugness in their eyes, the way they watched me, waiting for a reaction. I gave them nothing. Instead, I started planning my exit. First, I met with a lawyer. I showed him the footage, explained everything. How I had been the sole provider for over a decade. How the kids had turned against me. How Samantha had undermined me every step of the way. He nodded as he took notes. You have a strong case, he said. Especially with the video evidence. You could push for a no-contest divorce, keep all your assets, and, given the harassment, you might even get a restraining order. Restraining order. Against the kids I had raised. I swallowed hard. I didn't want it to come to that. But after what I saw on those tapes, I wasn't sure anymore. File everything, I said. I want out. The next step was financial. I closed our joint accounts, transferred my direct deposit into a separate one, and removed Samantha's access to my credit cards. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Less than a week later, Samantha stormed into the kitchen, waving her phone at me. Why is my card declined? I didn't even look up from my coffee. Because it's not your card. She blinked. Excuse me. I set my mug down, meeting her eyes. The accounts were in my name. I removed you. Her face twisted in anger. Are you serious right now? You can't just. I can, I said, standing up. And I did. Luke, who had been lounging on the couch, overheard and snorted. Wow. So you're just gonna cut us off like that? I turned to him, expression blank. Wasn't that what you wanted? Emma crossed her arms. This is so childish. I let out a humorless laugh. Right. I'm the childish one. Not the people keying my car and trashing my things. Luke stiffened. You don't have proof of that. I tilted my head. Don't I? Silence. Samantha stepped in, voice sharp. You're acting insane, Thomas. I picked up my laptop, opened the folder labeled security footage, and turned the screen toward them. They watched in real time as their faces appeared on the screen, laughing, cutting up my clothes, rifling through my stuff like I was some stranger they wanted to rob. Emma's arms dropped to her sides. Luke's face went pale. Samantha didn't even look surprised. She just sighed, rubbing her temples. You set up cameras? Really? That was her takeaway. Not that her kids had destroyed my property, not that they had turned into entitled little brats, but that I had the audacity to document it. I closed the laptop, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. There's an envelope on the counter, I said over my shoulder. Inside are divorce papers, copies of the police report, and a list of all the assets I'm taking with me. Samantha finally looked worried. Wait, police report? I didn't stop walking. Yeah, I said. Turns out vandalizing someone's property is a crime. Who knew? Then I walked out. And I didn't look back. I checked into a motel that night. Nothing fancy, just a quiet, anonymous place where I could breathe. The air in that house had been suffocating for too long. I lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling, letting the reality of it all settle in. It was over. I had walked away. And yet, the weight in my chest didn't lift. Not because I regretted it, hell no. But because I was grieving something that had never really existed. I had spent over a decade believing I was building a family. That I was a father to those kids. That Samantha was my partner. But none of it was real. They didn't see me as a father. She didn't see me as a husband. I was just convenient. And now, I wasn't. The first few days were quiet. Samantha didn't call, didn't text. She was probably fuming, trying to figure out her next move. Then, on the third day, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. I hesitated before pressing play. Thomas. Her voice was clipped, controlled. You're being ridiculous. Come back so we can talk about this like adults. A pause. The kids are upset. They don't understand why you're doing this. I laughed out loud. They don't understand? Oh, they understood perfectly. They just didn't like the consequences. I deleted the voicemail and went about my day. By the end of the week, the messages had changed tone. Less arrogance, more panic. Thomas, I can't cover everything on my own. You know that. Emma's school fees are due. Are you really going to let her suffer because of this? Luke needs new tires for his car. You always took care of that stuff. That one made me stop. His car? I was the one who bought it. Paid for every maintenance check, every insurance bill. And now, suddenly, it was just his car? I shook my head, tossing my phone onto the nightstand. They still didn't get it. Then, late one night, a different message came in. Not from Samantha. From Emma. It was just 3 words. I miss you. I sat there, staring at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. For a brief, stupid moment, I felt something crack inside me. The part of me that still wanted to believe in second chances and family in them. Then I remembered the way she had smirked at me that night. The way she had stood beside Luke, watching as he told me I wasn't their father. The way she had laughed when my things were destroyed. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I had another voicemail. This time, it wasn't from Samantha. It was from Luke. I hesitated, then pressed play. You're a piece of shit. You know that? His voice was sharp, filled with venom. Mom's losing it. Emma's crying, and you're just sitting there pretending we don't exist. You're pathetic. There was a rustling sound, like he was pacing. Then he scoffed. But I guess that's all you ever were. Uh-huh. A coward. That's why Mom never actually loved you. That's why you'll always just be some loser pretending to be a dad. Click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, something deep inside me going cold. So that was it. That was who he really was. There was no guilt. No apology. Just rage that his free ride had ended. I exhaled slowly, setting my phone down. It didn't hurt. Not anymore. It just confirmed what I already knew. A week passed. Then another. The call stopped. The text stopped. At first, I thought maybe they'd finally given up. Accepted that I was gone. That they'd burned the bridge down themselves, and there was nothing left for them to stand on. But then, one afternoon, my lawyer called. "You might want to check your email," he said, voice carefully neutral. I opened my laptop, clicked on the attachment he'd sent. And there it was. Samantha was suing me for spousal support. I let out a low laugh, shaking my head. Of course she was. The woman who told me to back off. Who let her kids treat me like a stranger in my own home. Who told me, to my face, that I was never really their father. Now she wanted my money. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. His reply came within minutes. "Don't worry. She doesn't have a case." And he was right. I had the documents proving I was the sole provider for over a decade. The security footage showing her kids destroying my things. The police report. The financial records showing that she had been receiving her late husband's benefits the entire time, more than enough to sustain them. She didn't get a cent. I thought that was the end of it. Then, one night, there was a knock at my motel door. I froze, staring at it. No one knew where I was staying. Slowly, I walked over, peering through the peephole. Emma. Alone. I hesitated, then opened the door. She looked different. No smugness. No attitude. Just lost. "Hey," she said, voice small. I crossed my arms. "What do you want?" She swallowed. "Can I come in?" I didn't move. Didn't answer. Her eyes darted to the floor. I don't know where else to go." I sighed, stepping aside. 5 minutes. She nodded quickly, stepping in. Sat down on the edge of the bed, hands clasped together. For a long time, she didn't say anything. Just stared at her fingers like they held all the answers she was looking for. Then, finally, I fucked up. I leaned against the wall, waiting. I thought, I don't know, that you'd always be there. No matter what we did. No matter how we acted. Because you always were. She let out a shaky breath. But you're not. I stayed silent. She wiped her eyes, sniffing. Luke's still being an asshole. Mom's pretending she's fine, but she's not. Money's tight. The house is different without you. She looked up at me then, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the little girl I used to carry on my shoulders. "I miss you," she whispered. I exhaled, rubbing a hand down my face. "Emma." I shook my head. "It's too late." She flinched, like I had slapped her. I wasn't saying it to be cruel, but it was the truth. She and Luke had made their choice. Samantha had made hers. And I had made mine. "I know," she murmured, standing up. She walked to the door, hesitated, then turned back. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I nodded. "I know." She opened the door, stepped out, and I let her go. Because some things, once broken, can't be put back together. And some people only realize your worth once you're gone.